The Order of the Red Lion of the Rojas Empire, are infamous for risking their lives regardless of gender. Despite many invasion attempts, the imperial family remains strong and their reputation terrified surrounding countries. The source of their infamy is the commander of the Red Lion, Callista. She was born as a commoner, however despite the odds rise to commander-in-chief. She is known as the best swordwoman in history and she is the legendary war hero who ended the Salt War. This hero has just discovered she's pregnant. She became still not uttering a sound, then her face beamed with joy. She stands up feeling her belly, she covers her mouth trying to stop herself from screaming with joy. Most female knights are infertile due to their daily intense training. She had thought it would be the same for her, she can't believe she's pregnant. Before she was an orphan who was abandoned in the back alley. In order to survive she rummaged through trash to find food. Luckily she grew up well due to the fact she had saved the Duke's son from being kidnapped. Then the Duke's family sponsored her and she was able to learn swordsmanship. As a result she became commander-in-chief. She was as an orphan of no value who rose up to be a hero of the empire. She had always wanted something more, but the thought felt like a luxury. After realizing this isn't a dream, she ran around the room jumping and skipping with joy. She decides to calm down, she wouldn't want to hurt the baby. She holds her belly and cautiously takes a seat. She felt amazing until she realized a major problem. The baby's father, Simon Turlone, at a young age he became the first magician of the Rojas Empire. They had fought together and are best friends. She felt like an idiot for getting pregnant with her best friend child. She made a scary face, then immediately apologized to the baby for having a foul mouth from spending so much time in the battlefield. She ponders about giving the baby only precious things and sweet words. Her heart felt warm when she called it her baby. Callista lived because she was born. And endure because she wanted to live. Many times she had hoped to have her own family. Although it's the result of a single night, she's grateful. She promised herself she would protect the baby to the end. She thought of informing the father but decided not to. The Turlone would never allow a child from wedlock into their family. Besides, apart from Simon, the atmosphere is always unpleasant. With an innocent smile they probably would separate them. She would never allow them to take her baby, so she won't go to Turlone household. Now for Simon, she wonders if he would tell her to get rid of the baby. He's a man who hates humanity and definitely babies as well. She doesn't want to force him, but the baby is innocent and a pure blessing for her. She has plenty of influence and wealth to care for the child. So there's no reason to marry or ask him to be a father. Suddenly she gets a chill up her spine at the thought of marrying Simon. They had been best friends from an early age, and in present they're comrades who drink till dust and nothing more. Besides, the last time they met Simon discussed marriage, leading her to believe there's another woman in his heart. If Simon had the guts to tell this tigress to get rid of the baby or even show that he's slightly upset, she probably would end his life. Simon's a wise man with great skills. So she would have to plan for a while before executing it. Suddenly she's shocked by the length she's willing to go to protect the child. Wish I had a mother like this. She decides not to tell Simon. However, if things continue the way it's going, it'll become an issue. She only sees one solution: she must retire. She wears her uniform and looks into the mirror. In her reflection there's a strong, independent woman who's a great mom that all men want but 90% will never have. She remembers a time when Simon lectured her on why he made buttons from gold, saying it's because it's easier to store magic in high-purity gold. Then comments her brain must have turned into muscles. He then smiles and asked if she's making fun of him. She smiles and asked herself how did she sleep with someone like him. Now that the war is ended, it's a perfect time for the war hero to make a dramatic exit. A squire hears her master's footsteps and rushed to her side. Her name is Humming Gallas, who worships the ground. Callista walks on. The squire revere her as a god of war made by God himself, who is extremely humble despite her achievements. She approached Callista, who pats her on the head saying she's leaving alone. Humming blushes intensely, then runs to get her steed. The white stallion looked impressive as expected from a present from the emperor. Realizing the danger, asked for a carriage instead of the horse. Humming wonders what could have caused the sudden change. Callista may not know a lot about pregnancy, but she's aware that riding a horse is a no-no. At the emperor's palace in the hallway, a group of ladies praise someone for her gift from His Excellency. A woman in a blue dress approached Callista, intent in knowing why she's in such a hurry that she couldn't say hello. Callista greets her with her best smile, and asks about her well-being. She places her hand on Callista and claims she looks thin. Her hands are cold to the touch. It's then revealed that she's a half-elf, symbolized by her dark green eyes. She's a social queen who's over 40 but looks like 20. She's Callista child's soon-to-be grandmother. Callista lived in a room at the end of the hall that barely got sunlight. She was also instructed to eat with the servants, and whenever she wanted to meet Simon she had to ask for permission first. Callista no longer cares about being the child of a certain family, although the Duke's family are responsible for where she is in life. Callista is only treated nicely in public, however she decided to look at it as a cute trick. She kissed Helena on the hand and assures her she'll visit soon. Helena leaves, saying Her Highness kept her busy with questions about Simon. As Helena leaves she turns around. The ladies ask what's wrong. She says it's nothing, and the prince's office papers fly away due to the sudden opening of the window. The prince gets upset, and with a bit of index movement from Simon everything was back in order. The prince felt that using his skills for something like that was a waste of talent. The prince inquires if Callista is coming. Simon responds she's coming now. The prince is surprised it's her day off after all. At that time Simon smiles as he watches her get closer from the balcony. The prince then wonders why Callista and Simon have been acting strange. Around the time of Callista's victory party Simon zones out or gets strangely excited, and whenever he meets Callista he gets nervous, then gets mad for no reason. On the other hand, Callista had been cold as usual. Callista knocks on the door. As for Simon, he climbs the balcony, then reminds the prince to inform him of what they talked about. Afterwards he bows and jumps off the balcony. It's unfortunate for the prince, but he's only able to be where he is because of Callista and his cousin, who has the unique hair color that only those with enlightenment can have. The prince thinks that the way he risked his life for the empire is the same as how Simon has risked everything for Callista. The prince truly believes that Simon's love is unmatched. With a perfect posture, Callista greets the prince and requests retirement. For a moment the prince thought he heard wrong, but Callista assures him that his ears are working fine. The prince jumps out of his seat, then trips on his own feet. He falls into Callista's embrace. The prince then exclaims if he's the problem. She responds she wants to rest. Seeing a glimmer of hope tells her to take a vacation. She quickly destroys his hope by saying she wants to retire. He asks if Simon is the problem. Callista says she used the grandiose word of retirement, but if they need her she will return. However, her absence won't be short, so retirement is the best word. She states she isn't betraying the kingdom. The prince responds he knows she never even thought of that. She then reveals there's a possibility she's going to start a family. After leaving the prince's office, she reveals another problem. The rainy season, it lasts for a short period of time. However, it's so intense that the Ministry of Magic must get involved to minimize damage. She's aware she must depart before the rainy season, and if she leaves after it'll be too late. She noticed Simon in the garden and wondered how did it happen. On the day of her victory party, Callista was being praised for her strength by two men. She noticed Simon, who signaled her to meet him in the back. Simon asked her why she's drinking so much. She responds it feels good. He gives her some water, then afterwards takes her hand and tells her to follow him. It's her birthday and he has a present to give her. He gives her scrolls, which he gives her every year. Simon then explained the purpose of the scrolls. Realizing the scrolls are advanced, Callista wonders if he stole it. As if reading her mind, he admits it was made by the world's greatest wizard himself. He touches her cheeks and says by tearing the calling scroll he'll be able to find her. Callista slaps his hand, then rubs her cheeks vigorously. Simon felt upset and called her a dummy. She didn't understand what he meant. But Simon would rather talk to a brick. Seeing Simon in a bad mood, she quickly leaves, then noticed a scroll. Simon, seeing Callista with the scroll, tried to take it but he missed. He sweats like it's raining, and says it's dangerous, give it to him. Callista declines and, as if preparing to be chased, tells him to take it. But Simon stands still like a boulder. Simon asked if she's curious and why it's dangerous. He tells her it's a magic scroll that lets her know if she's in love or not. The scroll is activated by tearing it. If the person is feeling for the other party, their love will rise. For example, Simon feels like he's going crazy because he wants to kiss her. She wonders why he's talking like that. Afterwards he taunts her into tearing the scroll. She regrets it immediately, thinking she'll change emotionally in front of Simon. When she looked at Simon, he looked gorgeous and shiny. She rubbed her eyes intensely, causing Simon to touch her arm and ask if her eyes hurt. Callista blushes and retracts her arm. She remembers the sweet words he told her as if it's on repeat. She immediately leaves. Simon grabs her arm, asking what's wrong. Her body heats up, filled with passion. She jumps in her horse and tells Simon to shut up. Simon asked himself why. Then she returns and grabs his collar and orders him to dispel the scroll immediately. He says it's impossible. Suddenly she kissed him passionately. As they did it, she thought it's all his responsibility. She gets embarrassed from recalling the events. Simon noticed her from the garden and called her over. Simon says she got away. Callista being confused by Simon. She recollect her attempt of apologizing for what happened. Simon had gotten angry and thrown her out. That's not all. At the Imperial Garden, Simon discussed marriage, saying he's been getting pressured to marry. Being a supportive friend, Callista says she'll support him and take the deed to her grave. Suddenly he turned into a sea of fire and she had to run for her life. Then with sympathy she says she had no clue it would be so difficult for him that he couldn't even get out of bed. Since she's just an idiot with no stamina, trying to hold on to his last thread of pride, says he could get up, it's just that he didn't want to. Poor guy. Callista doesn't believe his story, but seeing his angry face quickly goes with what he said. Simon then reveals that he didn't fall for the scroll spell since he's a powerful wizard. However, Callista is adamant, saying he was acting crazy as well, and the scroll caused their friendship to turn into desire. Simon became so furious by the statement he blew up the Imperial Garden. Simon says he has to fix defense circles, so he'll be absent for 2 weeks as Simon leaves. Callista asked if he still hates it. He responds, "There's nothing I'll ever like." She stares at him. Simon goes further, saying he's thinking of getting married, not having children. Simon leaves and we then see him with a wedding ring box. Simon reminisces on her amazing figure, her scars that are a symbol of hard work, and also the nobles who sarcastically criticize her for her rough demeanor. Despite their words, she proudly marched forward. Seeing her wounds, he decided to protect her heart. When he gets married, he's sure he'll want children, but at the moment he hates them. Simon then recalls what happened the day after he did the deed. Simon woke up alone and went downstairs. There he saw a girl in a blue dress. Simon remembers she was introduced to him as the third princess of Ains, her name is Princess Luina. She informed him Callista had recently left. She reveals she came to propose to him. He finds this annoying. He looks at her with intimidating eyes and in a cold tone declines. Luina becomes red with rage, and yells is it because of Callista. Luina saw her leaving his room at an early hour, that is too early to meet a friend. She says she doesn't care who he met before she won't turn down the proposal. He responds in an angry tone, what does he and she have to do with each other? She reveals he had saved her. Simon, not wanting to waste any more time, tells her to leave. She clutches her shoulder and asked if he's curious and why she proposed. He asked if Callista saw her earlier. She angrily asked if Callista's the only thing he cares about. He responds Callista is the only one he's most curious about in the world. Luina yells and says he should ask her himself. Afterwards Simon got mad about the letter Callista wrote and didn't have time to ask. Simon still furious that she's apologizing to the man she spent the night with. Simon was extremely stupid. Before it took him 7 years to realize he was in love and because of the war never confessed his feelings. Thankfully the war ended after 7 years because of them. Upon entering his room he sees the prince who offers him a drink. The nation of Nathan had proposed marriage. They promised to fund the war if the queen position was guaranteed. He had predicted this, but still felt confused. Simon comforts him saying he can cast a spell to make them lose their minds. The prince laughs in wonder although it's idle talk. Simon is too willing to sacrifice himself. However, he's the kindest and warmest person he's ever met. The prince responds he doesn't want to dishonor his cousin. Suddenly Simon asked what he talked about with Callista. The prince quickly lies saying it's about military rights. The prince is fully aware that Simon changes when it comes to Callista. The prince thinks Simon would end his life then destroy the palace. The prince advised him to give Callista a small present. Simon blushes of the thought of seeing Callista's cheerful face. Simon then takes his leave saying he's busy. The prince lays his head on the table asking God why he was given this challenge.